Hello, everyone. So I'm Shaylee Nanavati, and I will be your host today. Welcome to our third webinar in the series, Unlocking the Secrets to an Innovative Mind. Shape Your Future brings you different industry leaders so you can hear from the top professionals and their innovative careers and paths. You can find our website with the link in the comments to find out more information about Shape Your Futures and for other details and notifications for our events. To hear about our latest updates and information, be sure to join our subscription list. Now, I'm very excited to introduce everyone today to our speaker, José Morey. So Jose drives the engineering council at Hyperloop. He leads the medical innovation at Liberty Biosecurity and mentors for MIT Solve. He has revolutionized innovation in a variety of industries and is currently serving as the special advisor to the director of CORD at the White House Office of Science and Technology. And he's an admission committee judge at the Space Technology Hall of Fame. In addition, Jose is an Eisenhower Fellow and a senior advisor for the NASA COVID-19 Breathing Space Initiative. Jose, I can't wait to know more about you and your experience. I'm sure our audience can't wait to know about all the amazing work you do. So please tell us more.
Thank you, Shay. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's been an interesting road for sure. Various projects have come along and various projects will continue to come along. And it's always interesting to see the opportunities that open up to you. And when you walk through and you take advantage of those opportunities, what ends up opening up after that. And it's not just the ones that are interesting for yourself, but also what comes along for other people that you can help them along their journey and see how they grow and how they innovate and how they kind of transform into really interesting individuals and go on to do really interesting projects. So I think it's more interesting to work with the folks that you can help do other interesting things as opposed to the things that you're doing yourself. So that's the one caveat I'll add to all the different things that are going on right now.
Well, thank you for that. So I wanted to start this webinar off by asking you about your recent Eisenhower Fellow that you received. By the way, congratulations on that. That's really incredible. I wanted to ask you, as an Eisenhower Fellow, so you've done amazing work and innovative work focusing on creating edutainment content to inspire underserved and underrepresented communities to enter the fields of STEM. So do you mind sharing more about what receiving the fellow means to you and how can others make such a strong impact as you have?
Well, thank you very much. I think to be honest, I think it's probably the greatest award or achievement that I've reached so far in my career. So it means a lot from that extent. And essentially the concept was previous kind of chairmen of the Eisenhower Foundation. Currently it's Secretary Gates, but before that it's been individuals such as Colin Powell and Madeleine Albright. There's also been George H.W. Bush, the first George Bush, as well as President Ford. So there's been a lot of political leaders, a lot of people that have made a big difference in the world from various capacities, and they bring together. There used to be 10 fellows that were chosen every year. Now I think there's a total of like 23 fellows that are chosen every year. It's expanded over the decades it's been around. And the concept is to bring emerging leaders or leaders that are in mid-career to do a fellowship, to do a mid-career fellowship, to expand on their career and the things that they've already done, or to transition to something that they want to do next. What is their next kind of big move from that perspective? And the fellowship, when they came to me, they actually had a couple of previous fellows that discussed the opportunity with me. And one of the things that my career has been transitioning to a lot, I do a lot of things right in emerging technologies, but oftentimes when I'm in these capacities, whether as an advisor or as an executive level in the different entities or the different projects, typically I am by far the only minority that tends to be at the table, and if not the only minority, then at least the only Hispanic that's at the table. So that's something that has been really eye-opening, and it's been like that always. I think you'll see that as well, throughout your career, especially in Silicon Valley. It's been an ongoing issue with a dearth of African Americans, Hispanics, females in the fields of the emerging technologies, even in the U.S., which is supposed to be kind of a leader for progressive ideals. And it's something that needs to change. So one of the things I started doing or realizing is the role that media plays in really our perceptions of who is typically in these roles. And I've had more and more opportunities to speak on these kinds of issues, especially to people of all age groups. And one thing that I tend to ask all of these individuals, people tend to have athletes, and they tend to have musicians or other artists that are influential in their lives, that they follow them on Instagram, or they're very interested in their lives. So it's something that I used to ask people, who's your favorite musician, or who's your favorite athlete, and who do you follow on Instagram? Everyone has someone that they follow. But when I ask them, who's your favorite scientist, there is no one that they tend to follow, or very few. So there's an overall issue that science and scientists don't have the same level of gravitas in popular culture, and especially in marginalized communities. And if you can't see it, then you can't be it. So the concept of using entertainment and using media to really inspire the next generation is where this fellowship came about. And because there's so many disparities and so many inequalities that are still rampant in society. We see it where there's a lot of discussion around this right now, but this has been going on for a long time. And a lot of these, it's multifactorial. It's not just one thing that's going to be an easy answer, but one of the things that is tied into all of it is socioeconomic status. Marginalized communities tend to be lower socioeconomic status. And the future jobs and the future growth all revolve around STEM and STEAM. So if we're going to be able to hopefully fix some of the comorbidities that come along, we need to elevate societies to go into these fields. We need to have young women going into the field of STEM. You need to have young Hispanics, people from Puerto Rico, immigrants from Mexico, people from urban centers, from low socioeconomic entities go into the field of STEM. So we need to kind of reach them where they are and reach them in a way that makes sense to them and can communicate with them. So making really interesting media that talks about science, but that reaches the developing communities in these marginalized sections. That's what the fellowship is about. And that's really what I'm fired up about, because it's kind of an all hands on deck thing. We all need to be helping out. If you're not part of the solution, then they say you're part of the problem. Realistically, we all need to be doing our part, even if it's just in our own little circle. If we can influence 2 people, influence those 2 people. That's your circle. Do it. Go for it. And that has cascading ripple effects. So when you can create something that is even bigger than yourself, then that touches an inordinate or an unknown really number of individual lives that will go on beyond you. And to your last question of how can other people do something similar, it's really that last point that I made is focus on doing things that are bigger than yourself. Focus on doing things that are going to make a lasting impact on your communities and on the world. And if you do that, you will find that you will be satisfied in life. You will find satiation. You will find meaning in what you're doing because you're giving of yourself. And at the end of the day, it's really more about what you give back than what you take with you. And you'll find so much more rewarding to work on those kinds of things. So that's what I would, if there's one thing for your audience to take away, that's the one thing I would say: work on things bigger than yourself that will make an impact on other humans around you.
That's incredible advice. Like doing something bigger than yourself, making it big impact. And it's incredible how you're able to provide that kind of role model in the science community, in the technology community, for different minority groups, for people who don't generally have an idea of what it would look like for them to go into STEAM and everything. That's incredible what you're doing.
Thanks. Well, I'm not doing it alone. And that's one of the things, like, even though we have a small number comparatively, of marginalized communities that are in the fields, they're still out there. They're still doing things. There are amazing women doing amazing things in science, and there's amazing Hispanics and amazing African Americans, but the other issue is that they don't have front and center, and they're not, as popular. I mean, things are changing, but we need more of it, right? We need to have the same cacophony of voices when it comes to science as you do to other kind of popular culture aspects. So that's what I'm trying to change. And there's several projects that I'm working underneath the fellowship. And one of them is I'm working on a book where I'm talking to a diverse group of individuals that are doing amazing things in STEM and STEAM. And I'm highlighting what they're doing and creating, media, published media to be able to highlight what they're doing, and really talking about who inspired them, like who drove them to be the people that they are, to do the amazing things that they're doing, to highlight them so that other people can read about them and hopefully be inspired and say, oh, well, they came from where I came from. Oh, they suffered through Jim Crow, or they suffered through this or that. And look where they got to. I can be that person too. That's something to inspire me. So, and then we're working on digital comics, and we're working on animated series, and we're working with the Clinton Foundation most recently on some text messaging applications that they have, developing some projects through that, and for Univision, and for several other kind of mediums as well, to really reach them wherever. And the other thing is that we tend to forget that this is a lifelong issue, right? Yes, we want to reach the future generation, so we are focusing on younger kids, but there are people that are 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, mid-career, late career, that have dealt with these inequalities and with these kind of setbacks for their entire lives. And now that, they feel like there may not be a way to transition, but there is. They can still go back and follow their dreams. People can transition to do what they want to do, to what they aspire to want to be at any stage in life. There's no age that's too old. There's no education level that's too low. Like, you can transition to do whatever you want to do. And that's the other thing that I when I talk to people, that I want to emphasize, that we have to try to fix the issues that have been occurring. So to do that, inspiring people that are in their 40s, their 50s or 60s, say, hey, you can go back and code, and you can go into computer engineering, or you can go back and learn additive manufacturing and start doing what you wanted to be doing. Like, it's never too late. So it's really a whole spectrum. Even though we're starting with the younger generation, we got to focus on the people that this has been affecting longer than the kids.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's really inspirational. I wanted to also touch on, I know a lot of people here are really interested in your engineering kind of part of Hyperloop. So do you mind telling us more about, like, Hyperloop took such an innovative and advanced idea, and they're really making it a reality right now. So do you mind sharing more of your thoughts, or how are they even doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a contributor for Hyperloop Transportation Technologies, and a hyper leader for their innovation group, which handles a lot of outside the box thinking and trying to be innovative, and deals a lot with their intellectual property for figuring out strategies behind that perspective. And on the engineering council, I don't lead the engineering council, but I am part of the engineering council. And what the engineering council does, essentially, it's other individuals that have expertise in various kinds of backgrounds, from your traditional mechanical engineering to aerospace engineering, to government infrastructure, to things, emerging technologies and artificial intelligence. And it brings them together to function almost as a chief technology officer, where they come and they help kind of direct the overall strategy, and also to help ameliorate any issues that the engineering teams, the sub teams, run into, to help say, all right, well, this is the decision that's going to be made that makes the most sense based on having an umbrella view, or a bird's eye view of what's going on. But as far as the technology itself, yeah, it's come a long way from the original white paper that SpaceX put out. And obviously this wasn't a brand new concept. This has been around for over 100 years. Pneumatic travel is not new, right? They even did a small functional pneumatic tube where people transported through in New York, a long time ago. So the concept wasn't brand new, but it got re-inspired by Mr. Musk and SpaceX and bringing it out. And since then, you've seen a lot. It's no longer just one company doing this. There are many companies. It seems like there's more companies I can keep track of anymore all over the place that are in North America and South America and Europe and Asia, where they're all working together. Obviously, some of the bigger ones are Hyperloop Transportation Technologies and Virgin Hyperloop One. And you're seeing it now that it's really an industry, and it's really pushed the envelope in so many perspectives. And you're seeing so many different groups come together to really discuss and figure out how we're going to make this come to a reality. And you're seeing the biggest issues no longer really the engineering aspects. The engineering stuff, you're taking a lot of existing technology and you're just putting it together in a novel way, right? Magnetic levitation is not really new. Creating a tube in a vacuum is not really new. So you're just putting all these different technologies that have already existed into one technology or into one transportation system. So the biggest hurdles that have actually come haven't been from the engineering perspective. Those were kind of already done. The biggest hurdles actually come from more of a political perspective or infrastructure perspective dealing with governments. So that is kind of the biggest challenge that we've seen over the last 5 or 6 years that the industry has been developing. But even those, you're seeing huge progress. The European Union, in collaboration with HCT, developed the safety standards in collaboration with Munich Re, and set up what the safety standards and what the actual guidelines would be to have a Hyperloop system within Europe. You've seen feasibility studies all over the world. One of the most advanced ones here in Ohio, combining different cities. So those things have progressed. You've seen the United States Department of Transportation come out and support it and actually set up a NET council, so future like emerging technology and transportation council, to evaluate. And they've actually set up the guidelines also now in the US. That just happened like a couple of weeks to months ago. So the biggest challenges have been governmental, and we're seeing those being overcome now at a much faster and faster clip. Everyone from a governmental perspective realizes that this is not a technology that's pie in the sky. This is technology that's already here, and it's just a matter of setting up the regulation standards to do it. And I think we'll see a lot more movement over the course of the next 4 years, especially in the US, regardless of really who controls the government in the next 4 years. I think infrastructure is something that both parties can agree on. So hopefully we'll see, at least from a verbal perspective, a lot of people are talking about it. So I think we'll see a lot of really interesting things come out of it. At the very least, maybe feasibility studies or more feasibility studies and environmental studies around how to incorporate these types of newer forms of transportation. And it's not just Hyperloop. You talk about autonomous vehicles and even flying cars, people are experimenting with as well. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that's going down. And technology it's like magic, right? So it's a really cool time to be in the fields of STEM and STEAM right now.
No, yeah, it's really fantastic and like amazing. It's like mind-blowing. So I know like, that we have a few more minutes before we open it up to our audience for questions. So I wanted to ask a couple more. So as a mentor for MIT Solve, you are able to help tech entrepreneurs from like all over the world to scale their innovative work, so to say. So what is like one common theme that you see in their innovative work that others should take note of when trying to pursue their tech ideas through entrepreneurship?
Yeah, the MIT Solve community, and also I do some similar work for MIT Ideas. The things the vein that kind of goes through all of them from that perspective is that it's not just for profit that they're trying to do something. It's really, and you're seeing that a lot in entrepreneurs from all over the world. They're actually focusing more and more on for purpose. And that ends up being, and you're even seeing that from the investor side, from venture capitalists and private equity. Folks are starting to realize that it's not just dollar signs that people chase anymore. People really chase meaning and impact. And people want to make an impact. Yes, who doesn't want to be rich, right? Being wealthy is something that is very comfortable. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make you happy, and people are really looking to go beyond just dollar signs. And I think it goes back to kind of one of the original statements, is doing some things bigger than yourself. It's why you're doing them, and understanding that you can still do well by doing good. So you can still be very profitable and make a lot of money and and have a very comfortable life. But at the end of the day, if what you are doing is hollow, then all the money in the world's not going to fill that, right? So people, that's the really beautiful thing about working with the MIT Solve community, that everyone is really like the mission statements that they and the challenges that Solve puts out are really about. It's not about dollar signs. It's not about, all right, where's the best market, right? What's due for disruption, or what's making it $800 billion a year that we can go in with a widget and double that. No, it's really about what's the biggest issue, what's a problem, like single mothers, education, vaccinations, running water. Like, how do you create and lift up societies? And that's the thing that I would say that, as young entrepreneurs out there, as young innovators, seek out those things, seek out the things that are going to really make the most impact in the world. And you'll find that you're not only will you change the world, it will change you in the process. And it's an amazing experience to go through.
Yeah, that's incredible. Like, I think people often, like you said, kind of go towards the profit, goes towards the money side, but people now are getting more interested in impact. It's fulfilling, it's exciting. You can really make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
So we have, it's time for the questions from our audience. So if you guys have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. Okay, so our first question is, what kind of engineers work at Hyperloop, and what do they look for in a candidate?
Lots, actually, all sorts of engineers. I mean, it's a multifaceted type of infrastructure project, right, of transportation. So you need a little bit of everything. Harvard has actually worked with HTT and Hyperloop TT and set up the kind of a business plan around, I guess, Hyperloop TT specifically. It's a unique framework in which it uses and collaborates with a lot of contributors, and then it has contractors, and then it has full-time FTEs. But you need everything from safety engineers to mechanical engineers to computer engineers to aerospace engineers, because it's a bit of a mixture. Although we're following the guidelines from a fixed railway for the US DOT. And that's always, from discussions, that's what we envisioned it was going to be. But you have to, there's things that come from the rail system. There's things that come from the airline industry, and there's even things that come from space industry. And you have to tie all that in together with, the state-of-the-art security systems, state-of-the-art automation systems. We're obviously, even with user interfaces and being able to do mobile applications. We're even using computer vision experts and augmented reality experts. So the engineering is really everything that's cutting edge goes into Hyperloop. It's one of the most innovative and a bleeding edge type of engineering technology that there is. So pretty much, if you have any type of engineering background, there is a possibility for you to be utilized and be part of the team in some capacity. So and if people are interested, I mean, Hyperloop TT is always bringing in new contributors. So if they just go to the website, there's a application on there for people to apply. So everyone's really interested in that.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. I think you're right. Like, it's hard to kind of see from the outside, but on the inside, there's like many different type of engineerings, many different roles that need to be fulfilled. So our next question is, what is involved in advising at NASA?
So I've been a contributor as a judge for their NASA iTech program for several years. That started back maybe 4 years ago now. And I did that for several years back to back. And essentially, so the iTech program, which is still going on, but I haven't done as much for them in the past 12 to 18 months. But what they do essentially focus on developing public-private partnerships to be able to solve technology gaps for NASA. And it started originally, but it's kind of evolved over time as focusing primarily on the 2030 Mars mission. So it started during the previous administration where we had planned to go to Mars and kind of not go back to the moon, in the short to midterm. So there are obviously some technology gaps to be able to get to Mars, not so much from a mechanical perspective, although there are some from that perspective, but it's really a lot ends up being around physiology and human science. So with my background, I, at the time, was working at IBM. I was Associate Chief Health Officer for IBM Watson Health. So my expertise comes from, I'm an MD, so I have physician background and also artificial intelligence background. So that was kind of an area of expertise that was needed to be able to judge some of the companies that were coming through. And I've been working a lot in startups, so they obviously I had the skill set. And it started actually, it's a program that's out of here in the eastern coast of Virginia, based out of the Hampton Roads area where the National Institutes of Aerospace is. So it's a collaboration between the NIA and NASA, both Langley and headquarters. So I happened to be a local guy and I had all the expertise that they really required. So that's how I started working. Essentially, what I would do is same thing that you would do and that I've done before for private equity and other venture capitalists. So you evaluate the proposals from a company perspective. You're evaluating pitch decks over and over again, essentially. And you're looking at them both from a technical perspective to see if they solve the solution, what technology readiness level they're at, and whether it makes business sense. Because the concept was to not only have a technology that meets a need for NASA, but something that can also be commercialized for terrestrial use within 2 years, which is similar to what I do at the Space Technology Hall of Fame as a judge, right? Evaluating what's the benefit of this technology for space, but what's the technology also for terrestrial use. So those were kind of the first projects. And then for the Breathing Space Initiative, it's been a loose collaboration primarily out of NASA Ames, which was headed up by Dr. Von Kegel, who's an astronaut out of Ames and also out of Johnson, and really evaluating and trying to create a distributed platform that would be able to benefit people in the times of COVID. So be able to bring in different disparate data sets from different electronic health records that would be able to be protected and that you could integrate it and transport it to wherever it was needed, and to be able to allow telehealth and tele-ICU applications in times of like a pandemic or other natural disaster, and at the same time incorporate advanced wearable technology and advanced mobile technology that NASA has developed for things like infectious disease, for forward contamination, reverse contamination, and how that could eventually also be utilized for LEO, low Earth orbit, and for deep space missions. So it's kind of a distributed electronic health record to be able to work amongst all these different types of disparate health records that you can send data, you can bring data, and in places that have very low bandwidth for actual physical interaction, like you do in a time of pandemic, how do you actually call on a distributed workforce to be able to help during that time? And then also, how do you track logistics of supply chain to be able to transport that in places that you don't have a lot of infrastructure? So it's really a complex kind of project, and we have experts from Google, we have experts from overseas, we have experts from like Leidos and NetApp, obviously NASA, and there's a bunch of other groups that are incorporated into this that are working together to try to make this a reality.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that. I'm sorry, we're running really short on time, but we do have time for one more question. So the last question is, how are you able to be so successful in so many different areas and fields?
So I appreciate the compliment, but realistically, it's a lot about failure more than about success. It's really about willing to embrace failure, which coming from, I'm a MD, and if there's any kind of physicians out there, PhDs, MDs, you guys know, all of you, that this in those fields, like failure is not something, as you're going through your studies, right? You're usually working with people that are really stressful and really meticulous about their grades and not failing and always trying to get the best grades for everything. So it was really 180 degrees away from what my natural or what my cultivated kind of nature had developed. So I had to go through a learning period of being willing to fail and being willing to fail a lot. That's really the only way you're going to be able to be successful in any capacity. You have to be willing to challenge yourself, and you have to be willing to fail time and time and time again. And what people don't see, yes, they see the successes, and really people enjoy success. They really do. People like to see people that achieve. Like we like to see the person who wins the race, or the team that's, wins the Super Bowl. There's something about that it's heartwarming, and it's affirming that if you work hard, you will be successful. But realistically, success is very small, and failure tends to happen a lot more. So one of the things I've tried to do is I've learned to accept failure, and I've learned to seek it out. So I am constantly always looking to challenge myself, constantly always looking to stretch myself. So that's one of the most important things. Is if you're in a room and you are essentially the person, if you are the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. It's great that that happens occasionally, but realistically, you want to be in a place that other people are stretching you, or that you have a certain skill set that will add value to this team, but you don't have all the answers, and that team is going to grow. And then once you reach and you are the smartest person in that room, then you got to go look for the next room. You got to constantly be looking to stretch yourself and not be afraid to fail. And also, it's about a team. Understanding that you have to, and I use Leonardo da Vinci a lot as an avatar. I read about him profusely, always have. And one of the things that Leonardo would always do was he would constantly seek out people that were smarter than himself, and seek out people that were considered experts in their field, to learn from them, whether it was the best poet or the best mathematician or the best architect or the best engineer. He'd always be seeking out to try to find those people that were better than himself, and then to learn from them. But one thing that I've added to it is that I seek them out, and I seek to work with them, and I seek to build out a team, and to build up a team around me, of people that can help you do more than yourself. And as you grow your village, then you can do more than just one person could ever imagine to do. There's an old saying, and I use it a lot, and I've heard that it's from Asia. I've heard it's from Africa. I'm really not sure where it's from anymore, but it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So it's the concept that, yeah, you can do a lot really quick by yourself, but realistically, if you really want to do something much bigger than yourself, you have to build a village around you. And so that's really another secret, I guess, to the things I've been able to achieve, is that I stand on the shoulders of many, 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 many other people that are alive today, that help me in what I do, and that have come before me and have laid the foundation and the steps and the cement and their blood and their tears. And that's the thing, you're never really alone in this world. And you have to be constantly thinking about not just the people that you're trying to do things for, but the people that you owe a debt to, and how do you represent them. So those are the two things I would say.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic advice. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I really enjoyed interviewing today and getting to know more about you. I'm sure our audience enjoyed it as well. So thank you so much for your time, Jose.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You take care.
You too. And audience, thank you so much for attending and watching today. Next week, we're going to be interviewing Karen Songwalker, so don't forget to register for that. I think you can do so with the link in the chat. And we will see you all next week. Thank you once again, Jose.